there. I mean, like the treetop handicap of it is, how could you not be skittish laying 9.5 points with James Franklin in this spot? But you get a little bit deeper in that. For me, it's SMU has the defensive front to slow Penn State's ground game. That's basically a prerequisite for me if I'm looking to back the other side of, against Penn State. You're going to have to be able to clamp down that running game a bit. SMU is equipped to do that. And then if you're viable on offense to any degree and you can make this game competitive in the fourth quarter, maybe even have a lead, you're going to force Penn State's offense to throw more than they want to and to be more aggressive than they want to. And that's typically you're taking Drew Allar away from his game script and timing stuff and the quick stuff that he knows that he's going to be doing. You're forcing him to go down the field. That's when we see the turnovers from Drew Allar. So, and then on the other side, SMU, I don't know how, I feel you can make Penn State one-handed. I don't know that you can make SMU one-handed. They're decent running the ball. And I consider their run game more like a get me over the pitch, and they're really good at passing it, and they have a dual threat quarterback, and they have these waves of receivers and pass catchers to it's like hockey lines coming in, as far as their pass catching options. They can just remain multiple throughout the game. You can throw on Penn State, and I think SMU has success doing so today. Penn State, their pass defense, number 32 success rate, and then 51st in marginal explosiveness. So you can get them down the field too. I'm guessing that is what SMU focused on scheming this week, is how do we get those one-on-one shots that we have seen other teams have success with down the field. I'm going to start with the player props on this one, Gene. I really like, you probably know where I'm going with this. I really like the Kevin Jennings over 225.5 passing yards in this game. Jennings has thrown for 225 or more in 9 straight games. When's the last time I talked to you about a player prop where the guy had exceeded the number or whatever, in 9 straight games? So the precedent is already there. The last time he did not was his very first start of the season. Remember when they benched Preston Stone and then they went to Jennings? His very first start of the season. Now he played most of the game before, but Stone had started it. His first start was September 21st against TCU. SMU put up 1 billion points in that game because TCU kept turning the ball over and then they ran for a bunch of yards. That was the last time he did not go over 225. And he's 225.5 in this game. And the idea is Penn State, they have an awesome defense and whatnot. You can throw on Penn State, like I said. And the game script here with an almost double-digit underdog, you would expect that the game script's not, if nothing else, not going to flip away from Kevin Jennings and throwing the ball. So for those reasons, I like the Kevin Jennings over 225.5 passing yards. And I'm on the points with SMU, of course. Both the skittishness about that Penn State with James Franklin going back in these big games, and then the big number. And then last thing I'll say, flipping the field to the other, the other side of it. I'm sorry, going to the Penn State passing attack. Penn State is 42nd in marginal explosiveness. They're number 83 in yards per attempt. I mentioned they're very efficient, the Penn State passing offense, but it's when they start getting stretched a bit beyond their means where you have some issues, you see more turnovers. SMU, where you can get them in the pass game, it's the explosive passes that Penn State really doesn't generate anyway. I just think that SMU matches up really well in this game. Happy to take those points with SMU.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it will definitely be a good game for SMU to come out there and establish themselves. I see the passing. I'm with you on the passing over. And I just don't see Penn State just out here just running roughshod over people. I'm sorry. I don't see that happening. They couldn't run roughshod over West Virginia. This SMU team. And I know that was at the beginning of the year, but I haven't seen anything till now that tells me it's going to be something different.
Yeah, I don't think the public understands SMU very well, and they're going to get a shot to see them today. I don't think they realize how good SMU is in the trenches, and they have some good defensive players. And I think maybe in people's heads we're still in the June Jones era or something, and this is like a super finesse team, and they just throw it every single down. It's not exactly like that anymore. I really like this team. I like the way that Lashley has coached them, and they have been really good ever since they went to Kevin Jennings. Speaking of 30 for 30s, I mean, you brought up Pony Excess before. I might need one of those in the offseason about what the hell went on with Preston Stone at the beginning of the year. This is a guy who came in as a dark horse Heisman candidate, and then he was terrible at the beginning of the season, like inexplicably terrible.
And then disappeared.
And then disappeared.
Like Judy Winslow disappeared.
He has been on a milk carton ever since. So best of luck to your next stop, Mr. Preston Stone. But
I will say, you know, the Tyler Warren receptions, over 6.5 receptions seems like something that could really be a play today. I think they just have to keep finding ways to get him the football. He's their best receiver. He's probably their most dynamic offensive player outside of like quarterback. They're gonna find ways to get him the ball. I think if I was going with a Penn State prop, that would probably be the best prop that I like on Penn State.
I wish I could get a first tight end taken in April prop. Speaking of that, right now, I talked with my colleague Matthew Friedman about this a week or two ago, but because he had Colson Loveland above him, and I was thinking it was a mock draft or something, and so I had to DM him. I was like, Friedman, you got to put Tyler Warren over him, Anyway, the most of the rest of the market still in the NFL draft market that still has Colson Loveland as the first tight end. Get into the tape, boys. Tyler,
it's time to turn it on.
It's time to turn it on. It's time to watch those games. In April, once everyone has, there's not going to be a debate about who tight end one is in this class. And I love Colson Loveland.
Yeah. And I also think that he's gonna he's gonna cement himself if he goes out and tests. Because I think Tyler Warren's going to test off the charts like everywhere. I think it'll be very similar to what Theo Johnson did, except he's just a way better tight end than Theo Johnson is.
Great call. Yeah, Theo Johnson tested like a freaking Penn State. They always test like freaks, and I ain't gonna James Franklin. I'm not gonna accuse you of any shenanigans as far as that goes. No. But they always every single year at the combine. It's like, where did this Penn State kid come from? Remember Troy Apke? Troy Apke is the funniest one. Back in the day when Coach Prime just could not keep it together when Troy Apke was blazing. Yeah. But So anyway, we'll kick it to the next game, which is 4 p.m. Eastern kick today. Clemson at Texas. This is another interesting one. Gene, we have a bigger spread here, a spread that it appears we do have uniformity in the market, with this spread having moved to 13.5 this morning. Texas laying 13.5 in this game. My line on this one is Texas minus 11.4. I'm curious how you see this game, Gene. Who do you like?
Yeah, and I know we've got a lot of games to go through, so I'm gonna try not to like drag this on, but I think that this is a situation where Texas is getting a lot of love publicly, but I still see there's some questions about who's what and who's the leader and everything. In Clemson, you know where everything runs. There's no dissension, there's no anything. And Texas has actually struggled versus quarterbacks that have an ability to be athletic. So while I don't necessarily love Clemson to win this game, man, it's hard for me to go out there and say I'm about to, drop a 2-touchdown lead on Texas to win this game. Like, I think that Clemson will be prepared. They will be ready to go. And I think the dynamics of the quarterback having the ability to, to do some things with his legs is going to make it a rough day for Texas. I like them to cover. I'm sorry, not to cover. Excuse me. I like Clemson with the points today.
I like Clemson with the points as well. Like I say, showing just a little bit of line value on it, but with the 13.5, I'm very happy to take Clemson. The injury news in this game, Isaiah Bond, the receiver for Texas, it appears that he's not going to play. I actually don't think that one matters quite as much. You look at Texas' depth chart, they are loaded at wide receiver, and basically if Bond doesn't play, it means that Ryan Wingo and Silas Bolden play more. And to me, qualitatively, both those guys are pretty close to Isaiah Bond. But the other ones you have to keep an eye on, Kelvin Banks Jr. and Quinn Ewers, both on the updated injury report, were listed as probable, and Texas says that they're going to play. Banks did not play in the SEC title game, Banks better be 100% healthy in this game. Quinn Ewers, and this is going to go into my issue with laying this many points on Texas, and we'll see if I'm wrong. I think that I mentioned that I didn't think people really understood SMU or thought about them correctly. I think the same thing about Texas. It's just on the other side of it. Texas, in a game like this, laying this kind of number, getting this kind of respect, have they earned that this year? I'll just pose that question. And every week in the prop market, we've been talking about this for weeks. They always set Quinn Ewers' line way too high. Feels like a little too much respect going on that away as well. The Quinn Ewers, I want to talk about Quinn Ewers for a second, Gene. Quinn Ewers, do people realize out there that he has been terrible this year?
He's not very good.
I don't hear anyone talking about this. And this is so I dug a little bit deeper into this yesterday, Gene. I think we have a Benjamin Button situation going on with Quinn Ewers. He has the career of a Benjamin Button, or we're gonna have to come up with a new term with it. Quinn Ewers as a redshirt freshman. So you go back, this is third year starting. You go back to the first one. He had a PFF grade of like 71.8, which is fine, right? Your first year starting. Last year, spikes all the way up to 86.1. And especially down the stretch, he was just dealing. And this led to this stuff of like, oh, Quinn Ewers, he's a first round candidate. And next year he's going to play even better, take another step forward, and, yada, yada, yada. This year, his PFF grade has dropped to 71.9, 1/10 of a point away from where it was in his first year as a starter, and nowhere near the level of play that he had last year. I've been watching this kid every week. I gave up a long time ago on the idea of, okay, last year's Quinn Ewers is going to show up next week. That guy ain't walking through that door. I don't know what's going on with Quinn Ewers. I don't know if it's like he's thinking about Arch and he's thinking about the portal, or he's thinking about, do I declare? I'm not sure if it's like that sort of stuff going on, or I'm not sure if it's he was nicked up or he has been nicked up. Is it that he hasn't been 100% in the base? I'm not really sure, but he's not the same dude. He's not generating the same kind of velocity. He does not have the same kind of pocket presence. All of his stats have become wonky. And again, just reverted to where it was in the first season. Because of that, I have a hard time trusting the Texas offense as a whole. I just talked about Ewers, the guy who engineers the passing game, the running game. People forget this too. They lost 2 running backs for the season in the preseason, including their projected starting running back. At that point, Texas had been down to 3 scholarship running backs all season long. They're light there. The offensive line, which was so ballyhooed, people said it was the best in the nation. The few times it has played the better competition, it has folded and wilted. Yeah, and some of the defensive metrics, you start to wonder, are some of these things being propped up by their schedule? Because we saw against some of the better opponents, like for instance, their pass defensive metrics are really good. But in a couple of the games against the better opponents, we saw teams move the ball in the air against them. And you're wondering, like, when you gave up 70 passing yards to Colorado State and some of those teams, like early on, the bad opponents, is that sort of propping some of this stuff up? The high and low for me is, I think Clemson's a team that has a multiple offense. And it's not the exact same as SMU, but you're running the tempo. You throw the ball, you're going to force to both sides of the field. You're going to force, and usually with the quicker throws, you're going to force the defense to cover sideline to sideline. And then you have the couple running backs that you like as well. And it's hard to push Clemson one-handed. Of course, Georgia did it in the opener. Georgia, the team that beat Texas twice this season. But we haven't, Clemson has more or less been able to keep doing what they want to do on offense and remain multiple. And I think they'll be able to in this game. And I think they're going to be able to scratch out enough offense where they're going to comfortably stay within this 13.5 number. I like Cade Klubnik over 207. Well, I'll just go into the props. Cade Klubnik over 217.5 passing yards is where I got that one. People are not talking about Quinn Ewers and how his game has fallen off the shelf. They're also not talking about Cade Klubnik going the opposite way. Cade Klubnik, a resurgence, legitimate resurgence by Cade Klubnik. We've had a lot of fun making fun of Cade Klubnik in the past. I'm not immune, right? And hand up. I'm sorry, Mr. Cade Klubnik. He has been tremendous this year. His Kate Klubnik, 88.0 PFF grade this year. You just look at the whole thing. Was better than Ewers last season, right? I mean, just to put it in a little context of how well he is playing. And Klubnik, this number, so Klubnik has gone over this number in 6 of his last 8 games, and the game script's probably not going to go against him either, right? As the 13-point underdog. And then to Ewers, Ewers' number in Ewers' passing number at the books, 260.5 is at least where I got it. Certainly an under on that. Again, I was talking before about how these prop lines were elevated for Ewers. Prior to that, now the SEC title game, he racked up some passing yards in that game in the loss. But prior to that game, Quinn Ewers, and this again, this number is 260.5. So keep that in mind. Quinn Ewers, prior to the SEC title game, had thrown for 218 yards or less in 6 of 8 games. 218 yards, significantly south of the 260 here. They're like, oh, one time he threw for over 300. We gotta put that Quinn tax back on there. Keep putting that Quinn tax on there, and I'm gonna keep fading Quinn Ewers. So we are on the over of Klubnik 217.5, under on Ewers 260.5, and we are taking the points with Clemson. Gene and I are in agreement on that. I think they're going to be
Klubnik.
I think they're going to be frisky tonight. I think Clemson going to be frisky in this game. So we shall find out. And then Gene, the last CFP game on our docket, Tennessee traveling to Ohio State. This is the one I'm most looking forward to. I got to be honest. Ohio State right now in the market laying. Okay, so we got 7s and 7.5. It looks like MGM and FanDuel we got 7.5, and then other books I'm looking at 7. Yeah, with a bit of extra juice on the 7 -115, -120, etc. The injury news in this game, Ohio State, their offensive line, as I've talked about ad nauseum over the last month, but their starting center, Seth McLaughlin, he had the injury in practice. He is out for the year. And then Josh Simmons, their stud left tackle, he got injured for the season in Eugene, Oregon, the regular season game against Oregon. And this caused all kinds of mayhem and chaos on the Ohio State offensive line. They tried to back up left tackle for a game or two. He was terrible. Then he himself got injured. And then they had the inspired idea to move their all Big Ten guard, Donovan Jackson, to left tackle. And then they shuffled the other stuff around. A guy that was starting at guard had moved back to center. They bring another guard off the bench to replace Jackson in the lineup. Basically, right now, the Ohio State offensive line, it's 4 guards to the left of the right tackle. That's what their offensive line is. How did Ohio State lose to Michigan? I'll tell you. Michigan has 2 top 15 overall War Daddy interior defensive linemen that start for them. You'll see them go very quickly when we get to late April, the first Thursday night in April. Michigan has an awesome front 7. Yeah, the rest of the team might not be very good. Will Johnson didn't play. Didn't matter. Because when you have an awesome front 7 going up against a bad offensive line, a lot of times you'll see the other factors in the game tend to not matter quite as much. We were just talking about Texas, and remember the regular season game, Texas and Georgia? It didn't matter the other players on the field because Texas's offensive line was melting down against that Georgia pass rush. Most important matchup of the game, any game, probably, right, is how your offensive line is holding up against the defensive front. We have recent precedent on this, the struggles of the Ohio State offensive line and how that led to a loss outright against a far worse team than Tennessee. Tennessee is the nightmare scenario matchup round 1 for Ohio State because Tennessee, you can nitpick them all you want. Nico's not there. We wanted Nico to be a little bit better this year. And in the future, maybe we have a first-round pick there. He certainly has the tools, been inconsistency there. They've had to skew way more towards the run this year with Dylan Sampson. It has not been as dynamic of an attack. It hasn't been as an explosive of an attack. Tennessee has lost some games this year. Nitpick them all you want, but they have that trump card of one of the nation's best front 7s in a matchup against a bad offensive line. One of the nation's best front 7s, one of the nation's best run defenses, one of the nation's best pass rushes the Tennessee Volunteers have. again, against the pronounced Achilles heel of Ohio State in this game. Gene, I probably set this one up maybe a little bit too much. I'm curious. You see where I'm going with this one. Do you agree with me or do you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, this is a Tennessee team that was 17-17 at halftime with Georgia.
Yeah.
And then the offense couldn't generate enough to stick with Georgia. Georgia was able to put a couple touchdowns on the board in the second half and pull away there. But that's Georgia. Ohio State's not Georgia. And Ohio State isn't built like a bully. They're not built like a bully.
No, opposite.
No, they're built like a front runner.
Yeah,
right. They're not built like a bully. They can't just come out there and exact their will on anyone. At least they haven't been able to do that this year outside of the Indiana game. And I think we're starting to see that maybe Indiana was just fool's gold. Like, we got to call a spade, right? So outside of Indiana, when have they been able to exact their will? You know what I've seen Tennessee do? I've seen them go up against Georgia. I've seen them play Alabama. I've seen them play all of the who's who big time football programs this year. If anybody wants to know what the benefit of playing in the SEC is, that is what it is. When you get to the playoffs, you've seen it. You're not gonna see anything like that you haven't seen before. So it's not me saying that Tennessee is great or anything. It's me saying that I've been on the boat of the Big Ten has been down all season. It's not been the same level of competition in the Big Ten. And I think that the SEC cannibalized themselves this year because there were a lot more teams that were better than people thought. And then, guys suffered some losses. But now on an even playing field, or where everybody's had time to rest, you get this Tennessee team coming in, and now they're going to go up against Ohio State with a makeshift hodgepodge offensive line versus the strength of what Tennessee has become this year, which is their defensive front seven. I'll take the points. Like, kill me dead.
For sure. And speaking of the Tennessee, that front seven, the pass rush, they're number 11 in the nation in pressure rate. Going up against that offensive line that has the four guards. What is it that they say that in coaching circles that travels, Gene? It's the defense.
Defense in a run game.
And what can Tennessee do? They can run the ball and they can play some defense.
Yeah.
So I think you're looking at just an accelerated version of what happened to Ohio State in the Michigan game. They're gonna Chip Kelly will realize at a certain point, man, we can't run the ball at all. It's gonna be like the 1.5 yards per carry thing.
Mm-hmm.
Judkins and Henderson are gonna have no room to run. And at that point, when you're like, man, we got to get off the game plan that we had coming in, we're gonna have to throw the ball more. You're keeping Will Howard, a mediocre quarterback that lacks pocket presence, behind a bad offensive line against one of the best pass rushes in America at that point. That's not your winning formula either. Yeah. Whatever path they choose is the wrong one here. It just is what it is. Will Howard is going to need to play flawless football today for Ohio State to win this game. So, yeah, I think you got issues there. My player props in this one, Gene, now I got a different play of the day than this one, but honestly, this is probably the one I'm most confident in today. I love betting on college football, and I love the player props because I just love getting into the weeds. And every week, because there's so many, you'll find some stuff where the line appears to be off, or they made a mistake, or you feel that they're not baking in enough context of the matchup that we're about to see with the number. Maybe it's based on an aggregate of the 3-4 games in advance of that have nothing to do with the circumstances of today. Will Howard, my boy, Will Howard, his rushing total at the books today, Gene, 11.5. In college, Gene, as you know, we got some different scoring rules than in the NFL, and they deduct a quarterback sack yardage off of his rushing ledger, and the books are now asking Will Howard to get 12 or more rushing yards in a game where he's going to get sacked a bunch. I don't know about that one. I love the under on Will Howard rushing, and he's not going to be a part of your run game either. They haven't really used him as a part of in fact, that is one of my, let me just go on a brief aside here.
Okay.
I'm so curious as to why Ohio State pushed out Kyle McCord when the guy that they signed to replace him, the one area that you would have seen as a clear value add from your previous quarterback in Kyle McCord, the mobility, you never intended to use it. They didn't change their offense at all going from the one to the other. And so Will Howard, last year he generated all this value running around for Kansas State. They don't run him. And so I don't understand, if you're going to keep having the offense with the pocket passer back there, why we chose to kick out McCord for Howard. You have to modify your offense at a certain point, right? I mean, like, in deference to the quarterback that you just signed, his skill set. But
yeah,
apparently not.
It's confounding for sure.
It's confounding, but the whole point being they don't run him on design concepts. And he, of course, is at a huge risk of taking multiple sacks in this game, which will be deducted from that. So love the Will Howard under 11.5 rushing yards. And we're going all the way across. Sometimes we do this with Gene, you remember the Arizona State game this year where they had to start Jeff Sims?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
And we were just going nuts. Froton and I just betting the under of every single receiver on the Arizona State team. You do a shower thing because, you have a guy coming in that is single-handedly, by the hand of God, going to lower the tide of each and every single one of them because he can't throw. This game, we are acknowledging the reality of Tennessee's front seven against this bad Ohio State offensive line, and not only going under on Will Howard, we're spraying it around, Gene. We're Oprah right now. Everyone in the run game for Ohio State gets an under. You get an under. You get an under. You get an under.
Everybody gets an under.
Everybody gets an under. Quinshon Judkins, you are going under 58.5. Travion Henderson, you are going under 49.5. All of them. I want the unders on every single one of them. I think, not only they're, this is a nod more to the player's name value and such, but also the market's expectation of this game, which I don't think is right, of Ohio State as a 7.5 point favorite. And in a game like that, where the favorite at home could win by double digits, what does that do for the game script for their running game? That helps too. So you're not seeing any sort of tax on that. Whereas again, I'll just put it, Tennessee going to win this game. I think Tennessee wins this game. My line on this one is Ohio State -3. So in the player prop market, the idea of the game script just going totally for the Ohio State running game, I don't think that that's right either. And not only that, I do think that there's going to come a time in this game where Chip Kelly needs to entirely abandon it. We have seen that in the very recent past in a similar matchup. Hate the way that Ohio State matches up in this game. Hate their offensive line. I think Tennessee wins this one outright. You agree with me on the running props on the Ohio State?
Yeah, I don't see them having the day because again, this offensive line is just it's hodgepodge. It's put together with like Scotch tape, right? So I don't see them having the continuity. I don't see them being able to move Tennessee off the line. And if so, then I don't know how those running backs have any success. The only way I see it happening is if one of them breaks one big off like a busted like run fit, something like that. But as far as being able to consistently move the ball, I don't see them being able to consistently move the ball on the ground.
I'm looking at the thing right now. Will Howard is still at 11.5 rushing yards. I don't really get it. College football playoff games today. We're going to move on to the next ones. Gene's with these ones and to the audience out there, we're going to go a little bit quicker tempo on the rest of these before we get to
fire these.
Yeah, but before we get to Bainbridge in about 20 minutes, and we'll talk DFS and get a little bit deeper into the player props today. One issue with these games coming up here, and we're just going to quickly roll through everyone through the Monday through Friday. We do not have, and this is a complaint towards all the sports books, and it should be taken as such. We do not have player prop numbers on those games. Outside of, I'm seeing, and these might have just dropped this morning because these were definitely not all. Well, the NIU Fresno game that kicks off on Monday afternoon, the at least Underdog, they just dropped numbers on some guys on the NIU side, but they're all just the rushing and receiving over under half a touchdown. So we don't even have full player prop numbers. So I wish everyone out there that I could give player props for every single game, Monday through Friday. The numbers don't exist yet. So we'll more or less rapid fire the handicaps. But this is a good reminder for folks out there. Go on the Fantasy Life bet tracker this week. And Gene, you get to it's Fantasy Life, and then there's like a pull down, it's the NCAA football, and then it's best bets, right?
Yep. You got to go to the NCAA tab. It'll pull down. You'll see best bets there. You hit the best bets. If you go to the NFL, it's going to show you NFL best bets. You got to go to the NCAA section to see the best bets for NCAA. But we're going to be throwing prop bets in there, like madmen. As soon as these things start dropping on the different sites, we'll start putting them in there because I like to catch them fresh, because that's usually when they've made the biggest mistakes.
For sure. Yeah, and getting on those early. So folks out there, check that out, the bet tracker, the best bets thing under the NCAA football tab on Fantasy Life. Our bets will be entered there throughout the week for these props as they come, but we'll just be talking about the sides because that's all we got. So we'll hit that NIU Fresno State one first, Gene. On Monday afternoon. I love that we have reached the season where we have the midday ball games every single. I love Christmas week for this reason. Who do you like in NIU against Fresno State, G?
Oh gosh, I don't like either one of them. If I'm being honest, I do, however, like the NIU rushing attack when they're on. I was a little disappointed in how they showed up, if you will. Like once we got to once they got to conference play, I thought that they would be a lot more formidable in conference play, and they just kind of tailed off. And Terrio Brown on one of their best running backs there. I think if you see some props pop up for him, you want to take it because he has that home run hitting ability. I would lean towards Northern Illinois in this strictly because I think they have a better running attack or more prolific rushing attack than Fresno State's going to be able to combat. But I have been definitely disappointed in Northern Illinois after after I predicted that they would beat Notre Dame way back when. So
you did.
Yeah,
that was one of our best calls this year. Yeah.
Oh no, it was money. It was great. But yeah, I'm gonna lean towards Northern Iowa in this one, just off the run game.
Yeah,
Northern Illinois, excuse me.
Yeah, Brown, we'll see if he's back for this one. Missed the last 3 games. They had to lean a little bit more on Gavin Williams. So we'll see on that. The one guy we know ain't going to play for them, and this could be problematic, is Ethan Hampton. Yep. Their starting quarterback is in the portal and does not appear that he's going to play. Trayvon Rudolph, I don't think is going to play either. Their wide receiver, who I don't know if he's still coming off injury or whatever. A couple of years ago, I was like, that kid's playing in the NFL. I'm sure that's what he's intending to use his last year as sort of the spotlight game or whatever. And then on the Fresno State side, you have the new coaching staff, right? I mean, they played for 1 year with the interim. It was sort of like UAB a couple of years ago when Clark stepped down, and then they had named Vincent the 1 year interim, and then the players wanted the interim, and they didn't end up going that way. They're going to go with the former North Dakota State coach there, Entz. But you have a whole gamut of guys in the portal there: Mikey Keene, Jalen Moss, one of the other starting receivers, Raylan Sharp, and then multiple defenders too. We'll see who ends up playing there, and you have the interim staff that's sort of throwing that thing together. My line on, let me check what the live one. Gene, you got that live line? I just don't want to miscite it.
Off NIU is it's right now live. It's -3.
Yeah, it looks okay. Yeah, so where I'm at on that one is I'm at NIU -1.9, so I guess minus points. I'm right around where Vegas is on that one. I'd probably lean to Fresno State at this point, to be honest, with some of the defections on NIU. But this is one where I need those props because I honestly probably will not be betting this because we're very close to the margins. The props, though, I'm always going to find an opportunity in there. So that's probably more of a prop game. But yeah, would have that lean. The next one on Monday, Gene, Coastal Carolina and UTSA. This is, I should have started with this one because we actually got a morning kick on Monday. It was glorious. So UTSA at -10.5 in that spot. Gene, who do you like in that one?
I like UTSA. I think that UTSA has the opportunity to be more explosive. I think you're getting a team, especially, they've dealt with injuries as such, but the Road Runners, who a few years ago had a really stout defense, has a much more prolific offense. But a lot of these Texas teams, man, they just know how to get the ball matriculated down the field. I think UTSA will be able to play the game at the pace that they want to play it at. I think that's going to be detrimental for Coastal Carolina.
This is a tough one for me because my line on this game is UTSA minus 2.3, which would seem to be indicative of the value on the other side of this thing. That being said, I don't think that I can take it because this is a horrible matchup for Coastal Carolina. UTSA was one of those teams that I love betting this year because, Gene, as you know, I love handicapping the teams where they are one hand, like on defense, where they're like top heavy, like either their run defense or their pass defense way better than the other one, because this is the old UFC adage, styles make fights. And the ones where they become the easier handicap when you're tilted strongly one way, because then in the various matchups you go through, it's like some of the ones they can snuff out the torch, and then other teams they're hapless against because of this. With UTSA, it's very clear their run defense is awesome, so good. Their pass defense is not, and it's just that's what it is. Their UTSA's front seven is really good. They have some super duper athletic guys that are going to get taken in the draft. Guys they bring off the edge. They had the conference's defensive player of the year as well. A couple Friday nights ago, this kid was just going absolutely ballistic. J-Rob, I think. I'm forgetting the full name. But that's the front seven is their trump card. It's if you can keep them off your quarterback, and then you have an offense where you can get the receivers down the field. Those teams kill UTSA. You have to be able to protect your quarter. Just give them a bit of time, and if you can make the one-on-one throw downtown, UTSA's got problems. Coastal Carolina, I'm sorry, you do not qualify. You are a ground-based team in general, right? Which UTSA, they profile to shut the lights out on teams like that. And in addition to that, they have Coastal does both Noah Kim and Ethan Vasco in the transfer portal. So the throwing thing and how are we going to take advantage of UTSA's Achilles heel, you would have to make a logical leap to get there. So even though in a vacuum, it would appear that Coastal would be the side here. I don't think that you can take them because this matchup is that bad for them. You are being forced to, with your third string quarterback, that's your only path to victory. Bridge too far for Thor. This one's going to be a stay away for me too, just because the line. And I really like Owen
McCown too, though. I think he has a chance to be a really good quarterback. I don't see this being the last stop for Owen McCown. I think either this offseason or maybe after another season at UTSA, you'll see him hop in the portal and go to probably a Power Four conference team. I think he has all of those things that you want in a quarterback. He's athletic. He has an arm. He has a pedigree, a family tradition of playing quarterback at the highest level. I like him, and I think he'll have a breakout. Not a breakout because he's been doing well all year, but he'll have a standout game versus Coastal Carolina.
I agree with that. I've been impressed with him this year, and I'm not just saying that because now I'm in bed with the McCown family. I'm only 10 minutes away from the stadium here, the quarterback coach of the Vikings. But love the McCowns, and yeah, Owen has played really well, and I agree with you, Gene. You wonder some of these quarterbacks that are getting signed in the portal by some of these big schools. I think McCown could outplay him. For instance, I don't mean to just be out here just shooting strays at randos that are like, wait, why is he talking about me? I ain't even playing it. Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby, when the Lebbies broke, as we call him.
Yeah.
You go out and you sign Jackson Arnold and I get it. You worked with them before, and it's like, oh, I can turn back the clock. You don't got to turn back the clock with McCown. McCown could, I feel like, run that system better.
They also signed Luke Cromenhall, if I'm not mistaken. The quarterback that transferred from Florida State. I think it's Mississippi State, if I'm not mistaken.
I hadn't seen that one.
I'm gonna double check it because I don't want to be wrong about it.
Yeah, and Van Buren, I got to get deeper into the portal because you got these games in the portal. But Van Buren, he's still there, ain't he? Or are they just?
Yep. Cromenhall went to Mississippi State.
Okay. I would have, I mean, McCown's just an example, but whole point, I agree with your general point on that. Bad matchup there. This is another prop game. Again, take a look at that, and then we'll see the numbers that we get on at least the Coastal passing game. You have the shot to accrue yards, assuredly, when you're getting blown out in the second half. But we'll see the numbers that they end up putting out for that. I will probably almost assuredly be going under on the rushing prop offerings on the Coastal Carolina side because of this matchup. Gene, let's move to the next matchup, which is I already skipped ahead in the NIU one. The game above Sports Bowl, Pitt and Toledo. We got, and this one is on Tuesday afternoon. I believe it's the day after Christmas. Pittsburgh right now in the market, -7, -6.5. The 6.5, you got some elevated juice on that, somewhere between there in this one. Let me check as far as the opt-outs and the injuries on this one, what we got looking at. I don't think we don't have as on Toledo. I wasn't seeing many, and more or less Pitt. They don't really the contributors. They look to more or less, at least officially right now, what we have out in public, be pretty close to full strength. Who do you like in this game, Gene?
Yeah, I mean, my first blush would be to go on Pittsburgh. I think they're going to the problem with a lot of these MAC schools is, unfortunately, a lot of their players end up trying to find better homes. Like they're better players in the MAC will most times, especially over the last few years, immediately hop into the portal looking for P4 opportunities. And so it's harder to see them keep their people in place. That's usually what happens in these bowl games. It's usually either a coach that's popping away to go somewhere else, or players, like key significant players that are popping in the portal to go somewhere else. And so I look at Pitt as being a team that's probably going to be more intact, understanding what the mission is, going there. They've been to bowl games before. They won't have a problem. A line that opened up, I think, at 9.5, right? Like opened up a lot more, has come down to probably what it should be. And so for me, now it's at a place where I would feel more comfortable taking it. I would lean towards Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, you love what they did, sort of their own resurgence, bringing in the young offensive coordinator. And last year was a tough season, but hats off to them for turning this thing around. Gene, you mentioned that line has come down a bit from where Pittsburgh is closer to -10 before. Agree with the line movement. My line in this game is actually Pitt -7.4. So the market has brought this one right into my kitchen, and I guess even gone a little bit past that. I think it was going to, the market was going too far with the Pitt love initially, but both these teams, where they are more or less full strength, this thing should be around 7.5 or 7. It's another one where, unless we get some other news, I'm right on this thing. I guess if it was you still get the 7 or whatever, maybe you could consider Toledo. I'm going to stay away from this one as well. This is going to be another prop game for me. We'll be interested to see that Pittsburgh passing offense. We've seen some games where it explodes, and then other games not quite as much. Could this be a game where you profile to get those passing yards? We'll be digging deep into the props on this one when it comes out. Gene, we got a couple more to get through before we're going to bring up Bainbridge in 5 minutes. And for folks out there, we're going to open the mailbag there as well. So if you have more player prop questions, if you have DFS questions, anything else like that, put them in the chat, and we'll open up that mailbag when Bainbridge gets in here. I skipped over one. I skipped over the South Florida San Jose State one, right? The bowl game. Apologies about that on Tuesday night. So let's backtrack. San Jose State 3.5-point favorite in that one. Gene, who do you like? San Jose State against South Florida.
Yeah, it's this one here. Like, what South Florida team are we getting? Right? Are we getting dumpster fire fighting on the sidelines, team, or are we getting galvanized? We love our coach, and we're going to play hard for him team. Like, I don't really know. Like, to me, this game is, out of all of the games that you said you're staying away from, this game to me is one of those ones where I'm like, I have no clue. I don't know what I'm getting. San Jose State, I mean, with their new regime out there and what they're trying to do, I don't feel good about either team. This is when I would kind of stay completely away from. I do, however, think that if South Florida shows up as the South Florida team they should be, this is a game they absolutely should win.
Speaking of 30 for 30s, we might need one on Byron Brown.
Yeah.
Who appeared to be one of the nation's best young quarterbacks last year. And he
fell off the map.
He's been on a milk carton for a while now. And it was weird when they asked, I don't think he's played since week 5. They, at a certain point, like every single week, it's like, oh, Byron might be back. Byron might be back. And then they asked Golish at one point, they were like, hey, Golish, when if Byron is back, he's a certain quarterback, right? Fair question. I would have assumed the same. And Golish is like, well, not necessarily, and it's like, that whole thing was weird. My line on this one, I'm at 2.5. Both the roster. So on the San Jose State side, they have a starting cornerback that's not going to be playing in this game. And USF, their good guard, Andrew Killoyle. Anyway, I don't know how to pronounce the last name. That kid's good though. It looks like he's not going to play in this game. They might have a starting defensive back out as well. But this is another one you're pretty close to the margins. Nick Nash, I'll be curious the numbers that they drop. Nick Nash, they throw the ball to him every single play. I'll be curious on that. But yeah, probably staying away as far as the side goes on that, unless we get something else. The market has done a really good job with these games. Gene, the next one, Bowling Green and Arkansas State. Got a live line on this one of Bowling Green -7. Arkansas State, they ended up closing out the season well. Not the last game where they lost to ODU, but prior to that. But Arkansas State was a wonky kind of a team where they had the way more wins than they had the second order wins. You had a bunch of close wins and everything like that. Do you think that Arkansas State can overcome Bowling Green here?
Yeah, I actually do. I actually think Arkansas. I like getting the points at Arkansas State right here. Bowling Green has had some opt-outs. A couple first team all conference guys on defense. That's definitely going to hurt. Losing those guys, I don't know what the motivation is going to be over there in Bowling Green, but Arkansas State does a really good job year in and year out of finishing the job, and so I don't expect them to come out there and lay down. I'll take those points with Arkansas State.
Next one, Gene, Kansas State and Rutgers. We got a live line on this one in the market right now of this is 6.5, 7. We're sort of in that region. Kansas State laying it. This is another day after Christmas in this one. Who do you like between Kansas State and Rutgers?
I mean, this is like a running back bowl, right? Like it's some really good running backs in for both teams in here. But like Rutgers, like what is that? What have I seen out of Rutgers ever? Like since like the first Shianu regime, the first time that they were there, where I went, man, I really feel good about this Rutgers team. Like not really much anything. I think I would probably lean towards laying the points with Kansas State. I think they just have a more formidable team. They know who they are at quarterback. Running backs will be intact most likely. If not, the backup will be intact, and he's one of the best in the nation. Coming out of high school, he'll get a chance to have an expanded role. I think Kansas State has an opportunity to kick off their 2025 with a good win over Rutgers in this game.
I was tepid on some of the matchups that we just did because I think we're pretty close to margins. I will have prop bets on them later this week once we get the numbers on that. I'm going to make up for it here, though. I love a side in this game. We definitely have a bet in this one, and it is on Kansas State. Kansas State, if you can get the 6.5, my line on this game is Kansas State -11.3, and that's where I think it should be. I like this line. It should be closer to like what Texas is laying today against Clemson. Something like that. The Rutgers team, they had earlier this season, they were playing solid pass defense, but their run defense stunk throughout. And then they started to suffer this series of attrition of injuries on the defensive side. And what was a bad run defense became even worse. And then the pass defense fell off a shelf. In this game and any matchup against Kansas State, you are interested in digging into the run defense on the other side. It's a thing that informs whether you're going to beat Kansas State and by how much. You generally that one factor there. Rutgers' run defense, 119th success rate. Yards per rush allowed when you omit sacks, 114th. EPA per rush, 116th. Rutgers' run defense stinks. And again, it's been getting worse and worse and worse. In this game, you're going up against Kansas State, a team that has a dynamic dual threat at quarterback. Guy in Avery Johnson announced that he was coming back to school. I can tell folks out there that there was people reaching out to Avery Johnson during the regular season, and he did consider talking to some other schools after the season. And Kansas State, good on them. They quickly shut that thing down. Johnson announced he was coming back. One guy, I don't know if there is news out there yet on this. Sometimes I wonder if I should say stuff or not. I do not believe that DJ Giddens is playing in this game for whatever.
Yeah, that's why I said that someone was going to get a more expanded role in this one. I try to say things without saying things.
It's still in Edwards' time there. I would have to Google it, and I don't have time right now. But DJ Giddens is declaring for the draft, and I do not believe he'll be playing in this game. I think he's training right now. But anyway, despite not having Giddens, I don't care. They can keep him. Giddens good. We'll talk more about him this spring. But the running game between Johnson, between Edwards, between the cool things they can do there, I like their offensive line play. Not only are they going to control the line of scrimmage, they're going to maul Rutgers in this game. So they're going to be able to do whatever they want on the ground. I'll lay the points there. Gino, we're at the top of the hour here. We better let's call it Bainbridge. We had a couple more games that we could. On. Yeah, we
bring them in on these. Bring them in on these last games that we have to go through.
Bainbridge, how you doing?
I got a runny nose. My fingertips are numb. It is cold up here in Illinois right now. But we're doing good. We're fired up for the games today.
Yeah, that's just how it feels at the end of the season, Bainbridge. Bainbridge, we are through the game. We're onto the Friday games, and we'll just have you on for the panel of this just really quick. Then we'll get into the mailbag. Gene's got some FCS plays. We're going to talk about DFS with Bainbridge and some more player props. But let's just go super duper quick hitters through the Friday games. USC and A&M. We'll see if anyone has any thoughts on that. A&M laying 3.5 right now. This game being played on the 27th, 9:30 kickoff in this one. Gene with A&M laying minus 3.5. Who would you like in this one?
Yeah, I'd probably lean Texas A&M in this one. I think just physicality on the inside is going to make the difference for them in this game.
For me, it would be A&M in that one as well. And we'll just go Bainbridge. You have any thoughts on that one? I know we don't have prop lines yet out, but
no, I would go A&M as well. Something I saw on Twitter though was Raleek Brown. Remember, a former USC player. He actually praised Zachariah Branch for dipping out of USC. So I would. I don't think things are good there. I would go with A&M in that matchup.
Maybe Lincoln should have thought about taking that phone call from UCF.
I would have.
I think I would have as well.
How much money USC's paying Lincoln Riley?
Yeah, but
I think he's gonna ride that thing until they tell him to leave.
I think USC was hoping he'd take that call more seriously
exactly.
as well. But and then quickly, Syracuse and Washington State. We can go really quick on this one. Washington State. Who's even showing up for this game?
Nobody.
We have a situation with Washington State that is analogous to Marshall. Marshall sort of kicked off this precedent of just being like, yeah, we don't got enough of a roster to play this game. I guess Washington State intends to play in it. The books cannot set this line high enough. We are now up to 15.5.
Yeah.
16. And frankly, well, I don't know where they could push this, where I would actually take the points. Washington State, your coach just left for Wake Forest. Now your staff has been blowing up. Johnny Mateer is going with Oklahoma, going with Ben Arbuckle there, your offensive coordinator who left. A million different guys in the portal.
And Syracuse's head coach is a sociopath, so he's going to go out there and try to murder everybody on the Washington State side.
And his wife will be encouraging him to do it. Fran Brown, he won't shower during the losses. Like, the wife is like, get out there and win this game by 50 points.
Please.
And Kyle McCord, I feel like that's a guy who, like, just during the week, he's always Googling his own stats and staring at them. In this game, pal, you got an opportunity to throw for 8 touchdowns. I imagine we don't have a divergent opinion out there on this game, so I can move on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one, and I'm going to kick Bainbridge. I'm going to kick this one to you because I know you have some thoughts that and you can educate the audience a little bit about on this game. to watch out for when the player prop numbers drop in this very specific matchup. Arkansas laying 2 in the bowl game against Texas Tech. What do you got on Arkansas, Bainbridge?
Yeah, I haven't done a deep dive on this game just yet, but I'm pretty sure that I saw yesterday the beat writer tweeted it out that Arkansas is basically going to be without its entire 2 deep at wide receiver. So if we get some Taylor Green passing props, we will want to hit the under there. So yeah, all of their contributors have either gone to the portal or otherwise. So yeah, we like Taylor Green unders regardless of the situation. We hit rushing, passing props in the regular season, so we'll be attacking those.
Yeah, and not only that, so the receiving core has been blown up and decimated. Then you have their starting tight end Luke Haas is gonzo too. He said goodbye. Then you have both of their starting guards are in the portal, and we'll have to see if they end up playing as well. But you have a mass exodus of Taylor Green's friends, and we'll find out if I mean, and isn't Quentin Jackson going to the draft as well?
I would hope, yeah.
Maybe an opt-out. So yeah, Arkansas is going to be severely depleted on the offensive side. I think for some of these reasons, despite Texas Tech, they'll be playing without their offensive coordinator Zach Kitley, who went to FAU. Can't wait to watch that one, and can't wait to see what quarterback they sign at FAU to run that offense. I think I would be leaning towards Texas Tech in this game, but yeah, this is a huge prop opportunity here. Go under on the Taylor Green throwing. Bainbridge, would you speculatively, we don't know what the number will be yet, would you like the Green over rushing, just on the idea of he has now had multiple weeks? As you know, Green was dinged up various times throughout the season. You got the multiple weeks to get healthy. This game, you assuredly Petrino needs to just funnel all the offensive usage into Green and probably his legs. I mean, again, we don't have the number, so it's hard to be exact about this, but would you subsequently, and by extension of you went under passing, like the under, would you like the theoretical rushing over on Taylor Green in that game?
Yeah, probably depends what they set it at, right?
Yeah.
I would assume mid-30s is probably what it would be set at, something in that range. So theoretically, it makes sense. But here's the thing. Theoretically, Ty Thompson over rushing made sense yesterday, and that just got blown to pieces. So I don't know that I would necessarily take his rushing in that, just because of how depleted that Arkansas offense as a whole would be.
All right, boys. Let's say I think we got through them all. I was skipping around.
Oklahoma Navy.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. Oklahoma. And maybe I just didn't want to talk about Oklahoma anymore this season. Oklahoma, let's see the line we got on that one. Oklahoma -3. So this one being played in where is this one being played? Oh, the Armed Forces in Fort Worth, Texas. My line on this one, I think because we've had some line movement in this game. So I mean, earlier on it was what was a week ago, Oklahoma was closer to a double-digit
8.5.
Yeah, 8.5. And obviously it has ended up coming down. We've had some, I mentioned Jackson Arnold before leaving, and Oklahoma's had some news as far as that goes in the portal. JJ Hester in the portal, Jaleel Farouk, although they haven't had receivers all year. This is a Taylor Green, Arkansas wide receiver situation that Oklahoma played with all year. And then on the other side there, it's a service academy. They ain't going to have anyone opt out of this game. Gene,
Nope.
who do you like in this one with the -3?
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you that the stimulus package is alive.
Yeah.
The stimulus package is alive here. If you want to take an underdog in a game, this is the underdog that you take.
Okay.
Because I've never seen a team that has a defensive head coach that is a maniac that has a more undisciplined defense than Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Now you're about to play one of the most disciplined offenses, and you got to stay in your area. I just watched Navy put it on Army, and Army has a legitimately good defense that is held up against almost everyone not named Notre Dame. So I think this is going to be a really bad spot for Oklahoma. Navy will be prepared for them. They will be flying high. This is a great game for me to pick an underdog to win outright in. But even if not, I'm taking the points with Navy.
Did Danny Stutzman is he Have we got an announcement on him if he's going to play in this game or not? He just became Oklahoma's 83rd consensus All-American. I want to know if he is playing in this game because I mostly agree with Eugene. My only slight trepidation that one is Oklahoma's run defense so good this year, and the games where you've seen the opponents be able to take out those outside running concepts, both Army and Navy, is the ones where they've had success. But the Oklahoma appeared to be moving closer to having some defections on their defensive side. We'll have to get a little bit more into that and check out the Fed.
It's up and down. They said it's a coin flip right now, whether or not he hasn't made a decision to play.
Generally means that he ain't going to play.
Yeah, he's not going to play.
Yeah, and that's an important dude running around that second level, taking away those outside concepts. For me, that's sort of the key to that one. And maybe the line dropping is indicative of the idea that the market doesn't believe he's going to play. Boys, let's should we jump into the mailbag first, or should we hit the Gene? Why don't we hit your FCS really quick, and then we'll get to DFS and then get into the mailbag.
Sounds
we only got
good.
2 today, right?
Yeah, there's 2 games. We're at the FCS semifinals. If you want to know what the FBS or the college football playoff is going to look like, just watch the FCS. You'll see what's going on. It couldn't have worked out any better for the FCS as far as like getting the 4 best teams in all of college football to the Final Four. You've got the big rematch, North Dakota State versus South Dakota State. South Dakota State going to North Dakota State. South Dakota State is favored by 3 points right now. And quite honestly, this is either team could win this game. They are so evenly matched this year that if you told me South Dakota State was going to win, I'd be like, okay. If you told me North Dakota State was going to win, I'd be like, okay. And for that reason, I've got to take the points with the home team because for nothing else, I'm getting the value on the home team. When teams are even like this, and it's really just going to come down to maybe, a play here or there on who wins, I'm going to always go and side with the points and side with the home team. So give me North Dakota State +3 in this game. The other game, Montana State taking on the upstart, if you will, South Dakota Coyotes. It's been a great run for South Dakota, and they've done fantastic all year. They beat North Dakota State, but this Montana State team is a different level. Bozeman, Montana is a different environment. There's not going to be 9,000 people in a dome in Bozeman, Montana. There's going to be 20,000 people in frigid temperatures, and they're going to walk out there before the game with some shorts on and and hanging out with like some beats on their head. South Dakota's not going to be ready for that level. They're not going to be ready for touchdown Tommy Mellott. What was that line at last time I was looking at it? I think it was. I don't want to misspeak. Give me 1 second.
I'm seeing South Dakota State -3.5. The other one updated 9.5 for Montana.
9.5. Yes. I think this game ends up being one of those where South Dakota keeps it tight first half and then just gets run over in the second half because the Montana State offensive line and run game is just way too potent. They win this thing by 2 touchdowns. It'll be Montana State versus North Dakota State heading down to Frisco for the final time for the foreseeable future because they're doing the renovations in Frisco, and that game will be moving to Nashville next year, which will be interesting as well.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of bachelorette parties at next year's FCS championship game.
Absolutely. That's why I'll be there.
Yeah. Nice. Bainbridge, let's get into DFS, and then we had a couple questions. If anyone else has any questions, toss them into the mailbag. We'll hit them after we talk some DFS. Bainbridge, who do you like on the DFS card today?
Yeah, it's an interesting slate just because there's usually I'm going 2 quarterbacks almost always, but this is a slate where we don't necessarily have to. There's not a ton of great plays when Drew Aller is probably the best quarterback to have in your DFS lineups. That speaks to it, right? There's not a ton of quarterback options to choose from. So if you want to put a running back or wide receiver in the super flex, this is the slate to do it. A couple of my core builds. I love Trey Wisner for Texas this week. I mean, we saw it over the last month. Texas does not trust Jadon Blue. in the backfield with his fumbling issues. I think we're looking at 20 plus carries for Wisner this week. So I love him. And then Nick Singleton is a good play for Penn State as well. I like Nick Singleton preferred over Katron Allen because of his receiving ability, but I would definitely try and have at least one Penn State running back in your lineups if you didn't want to go with Singleton. But Wisner and Singleton, I'll start with my core build. Moving over to some mid-tier plays, similar situation. I like having one of Jeremiah Smith or Emeka Egbuka in my lineups this week. Hopefully for Ohio State's fans, Ryan Day doesn't try and man up and try and run the ball against Tennessee this week like he tried against Michigan.
You know he's going to try. At the start, Chip Kelly's going to be like, we got this. I've been drawing these running concepts up all week.
I guess
that's what I think is going to happen the first half, and then it's going to be like, oh, crap.
He wants to
look up at the scoreboard.
He wants to keep trying to prove Lou Holtz wrong for some reason, that they're all big, bad, and tough, right?
Sure.
Just throw it to your 5-star receivers. So I think they're at least going to try and attempt to do that a little bit more this week versus Tennessee. So I would want Smith or Egbuka in my lineups. I kind of like Egbuka over 4.5. If you look back to the biggest games that Ohio State has played this year, Will Howard has targeted Egbuka double-digit times against Oregon. And then just a couple bargain bin plays that I like. Same line of thinking. Carnell Tate is still only 3.9K on DraftKings. I don't know why his stats are right up there or similar-ish target-wise with Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith. So he's definitely a discount there. And then Harrison Wallace for Penn State. When Penn State dropped back to pass, they throw it in two directions, right? Tyler Warren, Harrison Wallace. We have a fully healthy Harrison Wallace like we saw in the conference championship against Oregon. So he's only 3.7K. So I like that play as well.
Harrison William Wallace.
There you go.
I like it. Any other ones for you, Bambers? You want to talk about player props a bit now?
I would say a couple fades.
Yeah.
Phil Maffa, definitely. I'm not risking that, right? Conventional thinking is that he's going to be limited, right? With a shoulder injury. I do think, they can probably shoot him up with some meds and he'll be fine in this type of scenario. But again, it's a Texas run D. It's stout as it is. So I would fade Maffa, and then Drew Aller is going to be popular today, right? He is just going to be popular for whatever reason. And I think you fade the noise there. I think you fade the high ownership, and maybe you try and attempt to get one of the other quarterbacks like a Cade Klubnik, for example, because what's Clemson going to do offensively, right? They're going to throw the football today with the limited Maffa. Maybe go in a different direction there.
Yeah, I love the now transition into the player props. I really like the over on Klubnik's passing in the prop market, which is now we're up to 218.5. What was it, 210.5 earlier this week? It's like done its slow climb. Maybe by kick we'll be at 220 or so. I really liked. Are you with me on that, Bainbridge?
Yeah, so that's actually one of my best bets. So but yes, I am with you there.
Okay, love it. All right, let's start with the quarterbacks, and we'll round robin it. And I'll mention some of mine. Brought them up earlier, but we'll do it again. Do you have any with as far as the player props go? Was there any other looks at quarterback you like today?
Man, I've been tossing and turning on this one. I am leaning towards over 18.5 rushing yards on Nico.
Okay.
Yeah. You have Dylan Sampson, but then you have a lot of banged up players behind him in that backfield. Plus Cam Seldon, I believe, transferred out. So, I mean, you've seen it all across the board with these bowl games. It's win or go home, right? The coaches and the quarterbacks are more willing to get their players involved in the run game. And I think just with no semblance of a passing game for Tennessee, I think they're going to have to use Nico's legs today. And I like 18.5 over rushing yards.
The past 4 games for Nico: 42 rushing yards against Vandy, 36 against Utah, but still 24 against Georgia, 22 against Mississippi State. Would a clear and then you average out the last 5, 27.6 rushing yards per game. I like that one. Their receiving core too is banged up, and that as Hypo teaches you with those downtown concepts. It's like if it's there, you're uncorking that thing. If not, you're taking off. They don't allow the quarterback to go to the other side of the field. It's the criticism we have about Tennessee quarterbacks in the draft, but it's like tuck it and run if it's not there. I think you're going to see a couple of the tuck and runs where Nico could get over this number. Certainly, we've been seeing that recently, so I like that one. Bainbridge, the ones that I was on today, it was over on Klubnik, in the 16.5, wherever it was. The under on Ewers, which I love. They've set that one too high again, a 260.5 or so going under on that. I like the Kevin Jennings over at 225.5. To some degree or the other, I think all three of those are mispriced. But my favorite one, Bainbridge, is of the quarterback props today, is the under on Will Howard's rushing yards at 11.5. I don't think Will Howard gets over 0. I think he ends this game with negative rushing yards. So those are mine today.
Love it.
Yeah, I can tell you it's a couple good plays. Cam Miller and Mark Gronowski. Cam Miller is at 200 and a half passing yards. Mark Gronowski is at 170 and a half passing yards.
We got FCS player props up there?
We have FCS player props up there. It's on Prize Picks right now.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I've never seen those before.
Listen, they're expanding. You gotta scroll all the way to the bottom. But just to keep it in perspective, both of those guys combined in their previous game threw for under 300 yards.
Yeah. So okay, yeah.
163 yards for Cam Miller and 118 yards for Mark Gronowski. These are two of the better defenses in all of the FCS, and they're really good against the pass. And also, both of these teams like to run the ball. So when you put in game script, which is we want to try to dominate the line of scrimmage, and the fact that both defenses are going to be keyed up in a controlled environment because North Dakota State plays in a dome, I like both of those guys to go under.
I can't believe we have FCS players.
Dude, you can bet on video games on Prize Picks. Of course, you can bet on FCS games.
I love it.
That's. I'm gonna have to get some FCS player props in today. Just out of respect. The running back position, Bainbridge, do you have any props on the? You were talking about Maffa before. Are you fading Maffa in the prop market as well? And do you have any other running back ones today?
I got Maffa at 55.5 under. He's obviously into the 40s now, so I'm probably just going to stay away for now. I took the juice with Trey Wisner over 16.5 rushing attempts on ESPN. I believe it's at minus 134 right now. I still like that over there. So, and then obviously I'm pretty sure you guys covered it. Kaytron Allen, Froton's play. Kaytron Allen over 10.5 rushing attempts.
Okay, yeah. The other running back ones was I on? I'm forgetting now. If we toss anyone, let's see. Oh, the Ohio Bainbridge. I'm fading all the Ohio State rushing. Not just Howard, his under rush. I'm going under on Judkins. I'm going over on Henderson. And you brought it up right when you got on here. They ain't going to be able to run. We've already seen this going up against an elite front seven. We know what happens.
You went over on Henderson? Under on both. Okay.
Fading them all. It's a fading shower.
Ohio State's got those interior offensive line injuries, I believe, right? So
correct.
Yeah. Yep.
Starting 4 guards there. So we're fading all of them. Those are the running back ones. Do we have any receiving props for today? I know I was I didn't bring it up earlier, but I tossed into a couple of just the correlated stuff because I'm over on Klubnik. I was tossing Antonio Williams into a couple. I think he was high 40s earlier this week, maybe right over 50, something like that. Bainbridge, did you got any of those?
Yeah, I found one this morning that probably would have been my top play over Klubnik. Spoiled it again over Klubnik. On FanDuel, I love Bryant Wesco over 3.5 receptions. That's at even odds right now. He is at 4.5 receptions at every other book. So really good deal with Bryant Wesco, 3.5 receptions over there. Clemson has really condensed that wide receiver rotation. They are only playing TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, and Antonio Williams right now.
Love it. Yeah. And on Let's see. On Prize Picks, you can get the red demon face on to 4.5 on Wesco. Probably shouldn't be juiced like that, should he? I mean, that should probably just be his standard line.
Yeah,
right?
double-digit targets the last 2 games, right?
Yeah, 8 catches against SMU, huge spot. 5 catches against South Carolina, huge spot. I definitely like that one. Last follow-up for you, Bainbridge. We talked earlier about Isaiah Bond being out in this game and what that does. Now you are giving more snaps to Wingo and to Bolden. I'm curious in the Texas receiving core and the pass catching props here on that side. The follow to the Bond thing, are you looking at a different angle and maybe someone discounted price because of the circumstance here? Or did you have any thoughts on that?
Not extensive thoughts. I worry that Wingo's number is going to get too high for that. I think everybody kind of saw that Pete the Mel report of like, oh, Wingo's been started or playing in the slot exclusively in practices with Isaiah Bond out. I'd be looking at maybe overs with Golden and DeAndre Moore versus an over on Wingo.
Okay, yeah, Golden's at 4.5 receptions. DeAndre Moore 3.5. Wingo, it's one of those red demon faces at 3.5. For whatever it's worth there. So as far as the receptions, of course. Okay, I think that's all the player props that we have. We just had we got a couple questions. We'll open the mailbag quick. Our friend Shane Whitehead asked us, do y'all like Dylan Sampson over 68 rushing yards? 60, wasn't he set higher?
Where are you getting 68.5 is my question.
I thought he was, I was going to say, I thought he was low 90s, 91.5. So I wonder if, I know what Shane did. The Green Goblin on Dylan Sampson now is 69.5.
69.5 on the Goblin.
For sure, I'd be over. Now, I mean, you got to go with.
You got to stack that with like 4 other plays though, in order to make any money off of it.
With those Green Goblins, but just because I think Tennessee going to be a lot more competitive, and I think Tennessee going to win. So I don't think. The thing you'd be concerned about is the blowout going the other way, and now the game script goes away from me. I think Tennessee will be able to run that whole time. So I'm sure, with the Green Goblin price, absolutely. Did you guys have any thoughts on that one?
No, I think you hit it.
Okay. Yeah, I would take it. Yeah,
we're all in agreement. Karen Shetty asks us, Brashad Smith, 78.5 rushing yards. Interesting one. That SMU Penn State game. Babers, what are your thoughts on Brashad Smith?
Yeah, that'd be I would pass on that one. Every projection set that I saw, including the CFF site, is the low 80s, high 70s. So there really is no edge there. I still like him in DFS just because of how involved Brashad Smith has been in the passing game lately. But I would not play his line. No.
Yeah, I was actually going to say I actually like the 23.5 receiving yards for him more than I like the rushing yards right there.
Oh, like it. Okay. Okay, boys, let's get I think we've gotten to our plays of the day, correct? We're getting there. Gene, let's start with you and Coach's Corner. What's your favorite play on the board today?
So it was interesting. We were talking at the beginning of the right before we came on, and we were giving our producer our plays of the day. And you put the play of the day in there, and I was like, well, looks like we're both going to have the same play of the day today.
All right, let's do it.
And I think we've alluded to it a lot today in the broadcast. I'm really bullish on Tennessee today.
Yeah.
I'm super bullish on Tennessee today. Yeah. I think that not only I've had them locked in at 7.5 for a while, but I'm probably going to go back in and take them as a money line as well. I think there's a tremendous value on taking them as an outright live dog in this game, especially with all of the different things that are going on with Ohio State's offensive line. If Nico can come out and show us glimpses of the Nico that he showed us early on, I think we have a really good opportunity for what would be the first big upset of. Well, not big upset, but the first upset of our college football playoffs, and I'm here for it. Give me Tennessee. plus the 7 or 7.5 or whatever it is. But I like Tennessee to win outright.
Love it, Bainbridge.
Yeah, I'm going Cade Klubnik over 213.5 passing yards. That is over at Hard Rock, actually. Yeah, he's set 218.5 everywhere else. I would probably still lean over there, but that's the best number that you can get. Texas, elite pass defense. They've played no good quarterbacks this season. Carson Beck is easily the best that they've faced. The quarterbacks that have done the best in terms of fantasy against Texas this year have been Diego Pavia, Davis Warren, Michael Van Buren, and Michael Hawkins. Okay. Cade Klubnik is easily better than all of them. He's coming home back to Texas. As we alluded to with the Moffitt injury, I think they're going to have to throw a ton today against Texas. So I like over 213.5 passing yards.
Yeah. Klubnik is from Austin, right?
He is. Yep. A lot of family there today.
Yeah. We got a homecoming there. Before you got on, Bainbridge, we're talking about Klubnik. People are not talking about how much improvement we have seen from him from last season. And, it was interesting comparing him to the quarterback on the other side, Quinn Ewers, who it doesn't seem like anyone cares to talk about how sharply he has regressed this year. And Cade Klubnik has probably been better this year than Quinn Ewers was last year, whereas Quinn Ewers has reverted into what he was his first year as a starter. It's kind of interesting, but I think people are sleeping on Clemson and certainly Klubnik a little bit.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be a volume play. I think it's telling too. There is no pass attempts line out there for Cade Klubnik. So I think the books already know that Clemson's going to have to throw a lot today.
I love it. Rocky Top, you will always be Tennessee to me. The line on this game is 7.5. Keep the points. Tennessee is going to win this game outright today against Ohio State. We talked about it earlier in the show. The front seven for Tennessee is one of the best in the country. They're one of the best against the run. They have one of the best pass rushes. And we saw recently Ohio State play Michigan, a team with a good front seven that stunk everywhere else, but it didn't matter because their Ohio State's running game got the light shut out on it. And then Will Howard was under duress, and Will Howard's not a good quarterback. That's what you're going to see from Tennessee. They can send waves of heat at you. They have the big edge rushing rotation with a bunch of stud athletes. They shut down the run consistently. And they're going to be able to scratch out enough offense here. I think Ohio State is ripe for the picking, and Tennessee was the worst case scenario matchup for them. So I like Tennessee to win that game outright. We have reached the end of the show and we have run out of time, and we are moving in on the first full Saturday of college football playoff games. Thanks so much for joining us today. We will be back next week, same time, same place. We will be in a different reality at that time. The first round of this thing will already be done. But thanks so much for joining us again, everybody out there. For my co-host, the coach, Gene Clemons, for Mike Bainbridge, I'm Thor Nystrom. Let's go cash some tickets.